go, my friend? Where to go today? I'm gonna find myself a pretty girl.
Welcome to Bluegrass Brooklyn, our podcast all about the music we love, straight from the Bluegrass borough of Brooklyn, New York.
It's too quiet in the shade.
Hello and welcome to this Monday edition of the Bluegrass Brooklyn podcast. My name is Liz Wolfe and I am your host. I'm excited to share this interview that I had with the Litch brothers. I interviewed them actually right after I got back from the Telluride Festival back in June of 2026, and they had just won the Telluride Band Contest. It was super exciting for them to win, and really great to talk to these two young, upcoming, evidently very well-educated and certainly very committed next generation of bluegrass players, starting out with a great win like the Telluride Band Contest. I am currently at the Silver Bay Wernick Method Camp. Very excited to be there for the week. And if you're missing that camp this year, perhaps you could consider it for next year. It's an awesome time, and I'm really enjoying playing bluegrass with so many incredible people. So please remember to follow, like, and subscribe to our podcast. Sharing it makes a big difference for us. We're so happy to be able to bring all these interviews to you. You can find us online at bluegrassbrooklyn.com. Brooklyn is spelled BKLYN. And you can find us on all the social media platforms that you would normally visit, and also, of course, all the podcast channels as well. Okay, let's get to the interview. Well, hello and welcome to Tashi and Kaj Litch, the Litch brothers. Woo!
Thanks so much for having us. Excited to be here.
The winners of the Telluride Band Contest 2026.
Yes.
How
Yeah.
good does that feel?
It's pretty exciting. We've been talking about it. We first heard about the Telluride Band Contest when we were less than 12 or something, playing a festival, and one of the other recent winners at that time was there, and we were just like, whoa, what a cool thing. And from that moment, we were like, man, one day we're going to make it out there and we're going to compete. So it feels pretty exciting to have made it all the way through.
It was a pretty surreal weekend, I think, for both of us. Sort of started out with quite an intense energy. I don't know, the competitions are pretty stressful. We were warming up before the preliminary rounds in a park that's across the street from the Elk Stage, which is in the town of Telluride, where the first round takes place. And all the bands are within earshot of each other, so you're like trying to play your best solo, so they overhear, and you're intimidated, and it seems like everybody else is intimidated. And then the final round is a whole nother level of stress, but then once it's all over, we just got to celebrate for the rest of the weekend. It was a pretty special time.
Yes, absolutely. Was that your first time at Telluride?
As a band, it was. Yeah. A couple years ago, I got to go just to listen. I mean, Telluride is such an incredible place, and that festival is just absolutely amazing. So I knew a little bit of what we were getting into, but the rest of the band, it was cool seeing their faces as we pulled into town and see that waterfall in the valley.
It was incredible. That's my first time at Telluride. I was there. I actually admit I did not hear you guys play. There was so much to do. And what was the band contest final? That was Saturday?
Yeah, Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Early.
And what I did was I took the gondola up to the top of the mountain because I live in New York City.
Yeah.
And I'd never been to Colorado before. And I said, yes, I'm missing some really great stuff right now. But I also thought, probably not going to be in Colorado anytime soon again. And so I took that gondola up to the top of the mountain, and I was there. I spent a couple hours by myself just walking around at the top. And so if anybody's listening to this and you go to Telluride, I highly recommend taking a little hike up there. But do not miss the band contest, obviously. It's the best part of the weekend.
Yeah, that gondola is amazing. I remember that was another moment there that was special. I grew up watching videos of Sam Bush playing in that gondola, with the town in the background. And it was sweet riding up there and playing some tunes in the gondola. And at night too, you take it up and there's just the stars. It feels like they're all around you. It's pretty
I
amazing.
didn't even think about that. Okay, I'll have to do that next time. So, okay, now you've won the band contest. Does it feel like a whole new world has opened up to you?
It was funny getting off stage. Maybe this analogy is not right, but it felt a bit like a soldier getting off the train from war at one of those old movies. This crowd and people shaking your hands and hugging you, and it was a bit of a whirlwind that has now since calmed down a little bit, I would say.
Yeah, and it's funny too. I think with some of these bluegrass things, where scheme of things, like not like the biggest thing in the world, but in the moment, it does feel like. I mean, first of all, just when at the end they call all of the finalists up and in reverse order say the band's names and where you placed, and I was ready for them to say her name fourth, and then they didn't say it, and it was wild, and I was really not expecting at that point to come out on first, and there's so many incredible bands too, but then it was afterward there was this moment. Whoa, that's awesome. And then 10 minutes later, it was like, wait, did we actually made it through? And then that continued for probably a couple of days after, just because I think as kids growing up in the whole bluegrass scene, the bluegrass community, it is an amazing community, as I'm sure everyone here has experienced. And as you grow up in the scene, you meet all of these people that you look up to and hear these experiences. And the Telluride Band Contest was one of those big, exciting experiences that was like, one day, man, maybe we could make it through. It felt super special, and also just took a minute to be like, whoa, we actually made it through this thing that we've been thinking about for a long time.
Well, that's part of it, is the who came before you, right?
Yeah.
And then they always say, like, Green Sky Bluegrass, it was the band winner so many years ago, and then you see what they've been up to. Have you ever heard, there's this Buddhist story, and it goes like this. Before enlightenment, chopping wood, carrying water. After enlightenment, chopping wood, carrying water. So it's like, before winning the bluegrass contest, practice, play, do your best. After, practice, play, do your best. Feels like something changed, but the only thing that changed is maybe you got this thing and now you're just going to get back to work and do it.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I didn't think all of these opportunities and awards and things are all just about us getting to continue to play bluegrass for ideally longer and for more people. But like you say, it's all the same, and it's just about playing the music. It's funny. I don't know if some of my college friends would have ever heard of the Telluride Band Contest, but so many other folks. I don't know. We come from a very small town in Washington State, a little island tucked up by Canada. And we just kept getting calls from our parents last weekend and texts from other musicians on the island growing up. And so I think the whole town is pretty excited for us. I think population is about 3,000, and maybe half of them will come out next year to hear us. But I think there are lots of folks that are really rooting for us, which has been really sweet.
Well, first of all, is it only two brothers? Or do you have other?
Yeah, just the two of us as brothers. We have a 2.5-year age gap. And then
Who's old? Tashi?
I'm older. Yeah, Tashi.
Okay.
And then the other two in the band, we have Ben Lewis playing bass and Evan Snowy. We're both awesome. And Evan, we grew up playing with in the Pacific Northwest. Yeah, great fiddle player, but he's also just been our buddy for a really long time, really as long as we can remember.
We actually had rival family bands with Evan. We played with our parents in the Crow Valley String Band, and he played with his parents in the Hot Cider String Band. And so we would always run into each other at the Northwest Folklife Festival or other camps and things. And I guess there could only be one greater Seattle area bluegrass family band. But we've since set those differences aside. He's more than welcome in the band and a great player, a good friend.
Yeah.
Well, in a town of 3,000 and an island in Washington State, I can't imagine there's a whole lot of bluegrass around. How did it come to be that you chose that genre of music?
Yeah, it was a journey. We started out playing classical violin when we were little kids, and our mom played in an Irish band, and she would have these jams at the house, and it always seemed like a lot of fun. And so immediately as little kids, we're like, oh, we want to be part of that. How do we get to do that? And so when we got done with practicing our classical Suzuki stuff, then we'd be allowed to do some fiddle stuff. I think that kept it exciting, practicing that stuff. It was like the treat when you got done practicing whatever else. And then I think our first exposure to bluegrass was at Wintergrass. Yeah, Wintergrass is a great festival in Bellevue. right near Seattle. We grew up, our parents volunteered there, and we started out in the kid program there. And then they had this youth orchestra that they took kids from some of the local high schools, and you back up some of the headliner bluegrass bands at the festival. So that was really cool because we got to be on stage with, in a different way, but be on stage with the Kruger brothers or Doyle Lawson and Peter Rowan and a lot of really cool folks. And with that, we also had this Skaggs and Rice record in our hay truck as we rode around the island as little kids. And so I think that was our first exposure to the sound, and we'd sing along, learn the harmonies. And at some point in there, with the mandolin having the role it has in bluegrass, I pivoted pretty quick over to that and was really excited about that. So then in that orchestra setting, then the direct, because we'd be doing our kind of classical violin backup stuff to that. But really, we wanted to be doing what our heroes were doing up there. And so at a certain point, the director was like, all right, bring your mandolin and take a solo on this one. And so that was really special, getting to go stand in the front and take a solo with Doyle Lawson or Sierra Hall one year. It was, that was pretty special. So I think that was really the biggest thing that made us catch that bug for bluegrass. And then we got invited to come do the Kids in Bluegrass program with, at that point, it was Kim Fox, and then Deanie Richardson took over directing that at IBMA. And so that was really cool to then get to play with really good bluegrass players our age. And at that time, I don't know, maybe 12 or 14 kids in that program, and they were all amazing. So we got to, just the chance to, coming from Washington, to get to go to IBMA and hear like mashy bluegrass for the first time live and sit in these jams and play with other kids our age. It's really special. I think just took off from there.
So Tashi, you're playing the mandolin, and Kai, what's your instrument?
I'm playing guitar mostly.
Okay.
Yeah, we both started playing fiddle and both continue to play fiddle around the edges. Tashi placed 5th in an Eastern Tennessee fiddle competition, which he won't let any of us forget. He's considered adding it to the band bio, but I think that's out.
Yeah, we've had a little bit of friendly rivalry, I'd say, growing up. And for a while, we had a rule where Kai wasn't allowed to play mandolin, I wasn't allowed to play guitar, just so that we had something that was like our own to not compete on. But yeah, in college, I stopped playing fiddle, and as those things go, it dropped off a little bit. And then Kai played a whole bunch of fiddle in college. And so I think a little bit of that rivalry picked up. So living in East Tennessee for a while, I started, digging into some of the old time fiddle stuff. Yeah, so that was kind of funny.
But yes, I only really play guitar in the band.
Okay.
Liability reasons.
And that is your preferred instrument to play? Or?
Yeah, I love it. Totally. But all fun. I started playing banjo a bunch recently. I don't know, I was just finished up college, and the stress of final exams and figuring out my next steps in life and all these things, I found the banjo to be this incredible. I mean, you mentioned Buddhism, but it's like such a meditative instrument. I was able to climb out of the skylight that I had. It was on the top floor of this house that I lived in, and sit on the roof and play banjo. It was like the easiest way to clear my mind. But yes, mostly play guitar and love it in the band.
That's amazing. Banjo and Buddhism. We need to do a special bluegrass retreat.
Telling you,
Right?
someone needs to look into it.
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
powerful stuff there for sure.
Yeah. In terms of meditation and clearing your mind, playing banjo it does it in a way that, I don't know, growing up on a small sort of hippie island in the Pacific Northwest, we were exposed to a lot of meditation and those kinds of things. And I gotta say, playing banjo is more effective at clearing your mind than I've ever been able to through any kind of meditation.
You're totally going to try to get that into some meditation retreats and things.
Yeah.
100%. So were you homeschooled? Because I know the best people in the world I know are always homeschooled. I just wondered if you were homeschooled.
Yeah, not quite. I mean, it's sort of borderline, I'd say. We were at this super tiny little elementary school on the island that was very called holistic, but a lot of time outside. And with that, I think I ended up not being at school a few days a week. And as a little kid, I was just so obsessed with the mandolin and bluegrass and just this need to get good. I think that was really exciting for me to have that opportunity to just put a lot of time into doing that. And also doing wood carving. There was this master wood carver, and I'd spend time at his shop doing that. Or we growing up in a small community like this, it felt a lot like bluegrass and that there was just a lot of older folks who were just really generous with their time and excited to share their expertise and their passions with younger people. And so that was really fun and helpful as a young person trying to pick up those things. And we had, similarly with music, there was this great friend who had a famous guitar store in Seattle he was Kai's first guitar teacher, and that was really special. Yeah, there's just this community of musicians that supported us at that point. And then when we got to high school, we went over to San Juan Island, the next island over in a series of islands for high school. And so we took a ferry or a little boat every day. In Washington, you can get your boater's license when you're 11. And so one of my friends had a little boat, and sometimes we'd drive that over to school if it wasn't too stormy, or if the ferries were a little bit unreliable. So, sometimes you'd get up to go to school and the ferry wouldn't be running. And so, all right, who has a boat that we can try and hitch a ride on or something like that? So, yeah, it was
hilarious because it's not like you could ever walk to school.
No, unfortunately.
Be a long walk uphill both ways too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we were really fortunate to have so much flexibility. We weren't homeschooled, but they'd be okay with us missing a week to go down to the IBMA or leaving in the middle of the day to have a lesson or all of those things. And we did learn to read and do all the other stuff too. So it worked
You
out.
managed to get into college, evidently.
Figured that out as well. Yes.
Yeah.
I think growing up on an island is a really unique experience. I think in what it lacks in traditional resources, I think it's more than compensated by this community of people that, like Tashi mentioned, like wood carvers or scientists and all these folks that are just so excited to have young people excited about what they're doing. And so really lift up younger people in that way.
So you just graduated, Kai?
Yes, I graduated from Yale at the end of May.
Okay. And what was your course of study?
I studied music as much as I could. The traditional music major is a little stuffy and wasn't really what I was looking for, but I took a music class each semester in all kinds of different things like music technology and spatial audio and things. But my degree program was in global affairs and human rights. So focused on civilian protection and rights during conflict, like that, while also playing as much music.
Okay. And you're going to have a summer of touring before you start thinking about what else you might do with that Yale degree.
That's it. Yeah. I think we have learned from our parents that life is so long and you can do so many different things. And I think music and many other things will be really important parts of that. And so I'm figuring it all out.
And Tasha, you are the recipient of the Gray Fox Scholarship.
Yes. Yeah, which is such a special program. And we have so much love for Gray Fox. It's an incredible festival. And that was so exciting. That opportunity, I mean, one, just a scholarship like that makes such a difference, at least for me, in my ability to pursue bluegrass music and continue studying that. But also, it comes with this opportunity to come out to Gray Fox and just participate in the amazing festival that it is. And just seeing a bluegrass festival at scale, just out in the field, was really cool. And I'm also really interested in, along with playing music, Christopher Small is a musicologist that talks about musicking. And kind of coined this term as talking about everything that, like music as participating in music outside of just the role of playing music. And so it includes everyone who's involved in, if you're putting on a festival, that's part of it. And everyone who does that is people hosting house concerts or just anything that contributes to the act of making music. It's this act of musicking. And as part of that, like I've been really interested in festival production and organizing these types of music events, especially around bluegrasses, as my passion. So over time, I've gotten the opportunity to do that in different capacities. And when I was in undergrad, I organized a festival there on campus and always tried to have bluegrass there in some sort of capacity. And then since then have gotten to participate and helped organize a little festival in Washington for a couple of years, and then started my own festival on the island where we grew up called Orcus Fest with Caleb Clotter and Reeb Williams, who are old-time country musicians who were awesome and who we looked up to as we were growing up a lot too. And Caleb also grew up on the island when he was similarly growing up, and so that was cool. I guess there's kind of been these through lines as well of being on the organizing side, and so seeing the amazing feat that Gray Fox is, where it's this farm field with no power or water, and they just bring all of that in, and this huge logistical feat, but also it has this amazing just like community around it. And that's really special to see. And I think coming in that first year that I came, I got to come the week before, and I just helped wherever I could and got to be a part of the team. So they have the setup crew who builds the dance floor, and there's so many of these folks who've been coming since, some of them since the start of the festival. And Mary Dow started it so long ago, and it had another name, and it was on this hill. And there's just, I don't know, there's so much kind of history in this story and this community that has been there supporting the festival and really is that festival. And it gives it this really special feeling. And I think some of my favorite festivals share that pretty special thing.
It was pretty amazing to watch it take shape. I think we got there on Tuesday or something of last year at Gray Fox in the early setup days. And it was, like you say, just a field. And then within 48 hours, this world had been erected with street signs after Scruggs and Monroe and Doc Watson, and the stage up the hill and the dance floor. And it's pretty amazing to watch it take place. I was reading Norman MacLean this week, and it ends with everything merges into one and a river runs through it. And I think it's probably not coincidence all these special places like Telluride and Gray Fox are these amazing communities of music, and there's a river running through the middle of them. They're pretty cool places.
So I have a question for you, because you're from what we would call the next generation, the younger folks coming up. So in Telluride, I guess I favor traditional bluegrass. And my friend and I that was there, she doesn't play. She's a classical musician, plays the oboe, very talented, skilled person, but mostly orchestral. And so she had never been to a bluegrass festival before. And one of the things that I felt in Telluride was there were a lot of drums, a lot of bands with drums. And there's a certain way in which we started saying, more banjo, like, where's the banjo? And I'm curious to know what your experience is watching the bands there, every single one of which was awesome and amazing. But there was a point during the festival where I said, okay, I'm going to watch this person, but I'm not going to say, I wish it was bluegrass, because it's not bluegrass. So, or it's certainly much more on the countryside than bluegrass. Yeah. Not saying that Sam Bush isn't bluegrass. So I'm curious, I feel like there is an evolution of bluegrass where it's moving away from the more trad versions to something which is more open. But where does the Litch brothers and your style fall into, and how do you feel about that?
I mean, we don't have drums, but we also don't have banjo, so you might be unhappy on both those fronts.
Yeah, I mean, I think bluegrass as a whole is evolving so quickly right now. And I think there's this jam grass is having a big moment. And I think there's a space for that and a lot of value in it. And I think it's kind of bringing attention to bluegrass in a really exciting way on a bigger scale. But I mean, Billy Strings last year at IBMA, he was talking about how he has this huge platform, and through Jamgrass and that community, and by extension after the Grateful Dead, there's this huge community that comes together around that side of it as like an entry point into bluegrass. But then he uses that platform as an excuse to just play Doc Watson songs and some trad bluegrass and just force it down people's throats while he has them all there in the arena. And I think that's cool in a lot of ways, just to see bluegrass being performed and use that size. But I think at the same time, like any kind of folk music, it is ever evolving, ever changing. And I think that's a journey we're in the middle of right now too, is to kind of figure out what we want our sound to be as for the next few years. Because we love the super trad stuff. And we've had fun with some of the more jamgrassy stuff. And then as you go Americana, there's a lot of opportunities, I think, as people are more open-minded to what bluegrass is and sounds like, to try and go a new direction as well. And so that's something that we've been trying to figure out too, is we don't want to just play trad bluegrass, but we also don't really want to be a jamgrass band. And so we're trying to find a kind of another space to be in that's not necessarily like one foot in each, but maybe another place completely. And so that's an exciting thing that we have a lot of discussions about.
Totally. I think there's in bluegrass a really special and interesting balance between tradition and innovation. And I think that has always been true. There's a recording of the first time in Bill Monroe's Bluegrass Boys when it transitioned from string bean playing clawhammer to three-finger Scruggs style. And on this recording, you can hear the crowd just goes wild because this new sound has completely revolutionized what they're hearing. And that was totally an innovation on playing the banjo, and it totally changed the sound of bluegrass. So I think innovations like that are happening all the time. And I think it's really cool that bluegrass throughout its life it's now sort of considered a traditional music, but was always a popular music. And like John Cohen, the late, great journalist and banjo player, has this book called Speed Bumps on a Dirt Road, and it documents the transition from old time music, bluegrass music. And you see these incredible black and white photos of these early concerts where they're just packed of young people who are so energized and excited to be listening to 5 people play acoustic music. And I think you feel some of that at Telluride for sure. And I think part of that comes from innovation. And yeah, it is like a bluegrass and a country music festival. And I think the more that we can put things together that make people, and particularly young people, excited, I think is really special. So we certainly think about that as a band. And we also love Bill Monroe and the old stuff. And it's a special combination.
Well, it has a certain energy to it that people really can tap into. And I always like to say, it's really perky music with sad lyrics.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
But, you feel real good when you're feeling bad about somebody getting killed.
Yeah.
And so you write your own music?
Yeah. We did, especially for this most recent album, we did a bunch of writing for that. And yeah, it's been great. It's definitely a journey, and it's a skill in itself. It's something we're trying to develop more. A good amount of the new album is original, and we're kind of always working on adding more to our set for coming up with new songs for future recordings.
And that's coming out at the end of the summer.
That's right. Yeah.
August. Okay. And so when you're touring this summer, you're playing music originals from that mostly?
We have been. Yeah. There's been a whole lot of that.
Yeah, don't leak them, please.
So what's that like, that experience of writing music? Do you do it together? Do you do it separately and then bring it to each other? How does it work?
Yeah. So as kids, we spent a lot of time writing music together. A lot of fiddle tunes, and also as we were trying to figure out how to write songs. That's always been more of a challenge for us, is the lyrics and songwriting. And so before I headed off to college, we spent so much time. And I mean, even after, whenever we were together, studying and working on songs. And since getting to college, it makes it more difficult. And so when we're together, we'll work on stuff, but we'd also just have FaceTime sessions. And it's sometimes having the structure of just, all right, college is so busy, so you have to schedule things that you want to happen. And so we'd schedule like, all right, we're going to take an hour and FaceTime and write a song. And having that structure was really helpful too. And we'd come in with some ideas and play them to each other, and workshop them and move them forward. And so that, especially, I think we have a few on this album that came about that way. I think sometimes having constraints like that can help with that creative process. Because sometimes just the open-ended, let's just write a song without any kind of structure or constraints on what you're doing can just be like, it's like possibility overload, and you don't really know where to go with it. So
I was fortunate to have a really great songwriting mentor at Yale as well, named Mike Errico. And I think he really helped energize a lot of my songwriting that then I think we bring together. He taught me that you can't write a new song until you finish the last one, because it's still open in your mind. And I think that's something we had struggled with. We had like all these open-ended, unfinished songs. And I think also having a record deadline really helped. I remember even the last few weeks before we went into the studio, tweaking lyrics and coming together as a band and doing all that together. That was a fun process.
Yeah, I think similarly, I was doing grad school at ETSU and working with Tim Stafford a lot on songwriting. And he's such an incredible songwriter, and he was a great mentor with all of that as I worked on improving on that craft. And similarly, Ed Snodderly is there in town, and with the down home but incredible songwriter. And I got some really good advice and guidance from through that process as well.
And where did you go to undergrad?
Lawrence University in Appleton, Wisconsin. They have a music conservatory and a liberal arts school. So I had one foot in each camp. And that was a great experience. There wasn't a lot of bluegrass specific instruction there. I was there on the music side, contemporary improvisation and composition. That was really exciting. It's just something completely different. And it's probably the Natalie and Brittany Haas were telling me as I was going into college, they were giving me some advice, and they were saying, playing bluegrass my whole life, college can be this opportunity to do something different and kind of get new perspective. And I think having that experience kind of served that well as just bringing a different type of approach to what I had already been doing.
And then you were at the IBMA Leadership Program of 2025.
Yes, I think so. Or maybe 2024
Okay.
classes, one of those classes. That was an amazing experience. It's a really special program they have there, and met so many incredible people, musicians and industry leaders. And I got a huge amount of it. And still, I mean, best class ever. And still,
Right. Oh,
still see those folks everywhere.
right. And
Yeah.
you're both planning to be at IBMA this year?
Yes, that's the plan. We're going to be a showcase band, and we're really excited for that. And I've been involved in organizing the momentum and industry achievement and those award shows that happen midweek for the last few years. And so there's a great team behind those that I'm really excited to be a part of. So I'll have, as we get busier, my role there I think this year it may be a little bit smaller just as I have a little bit less time, but really, really excited always to be a part of that in whatever capacity. And we're excited to be there in general.
Yeah, it's exciting to be an official showcase band. I think we've been applying since we were about 12 years old. And so it's exciting to be doing that this time.
So, Kai, what's your favorite part about it all? Is it performing? Is it the touring? Is it the playing with your brother? Is it the composition? What do you love?
It's such a cop-out answer, but it's all so special. And each part of it makes the others sweeter. Certainly parts of touring are challenging. At Telluride, we were sleeping on the ground on a little rocky plateau in someone's backyard, and we were in Wind Gap, Pennsylvania for a festival the week before. We flew, and it was 24 hours, and we didn't have time to eat any food, and all our flights were delayed. And I think all of those experiences also make, when you finally get to be there and be on stage and jam afterwards and meet all the folks, so worth it and so special. I think we're incredibly grateful to be, at least for this moment in our life, living this life, because I think it is one of the more special ways to meet people and travel and do something together. It's a pretty all-inclusive experience.
Well, I will tell you that I also camped, but it wasn't rocky. I was up at Lawson Hill, and I was cold.
It was cold, chilly, yeah.
Really cold. I was unprepared, even though I literally had 3 layers on, including a wool overcoat. My friend brought all the camping gear. I was cold. It was not pleasant for me.
We slept out on a trampoline one night to see the stars and also to have a little more cushion. And it was freezing. And then suddenly you're wearing your full down jacket with the hood up and 2 sleeping bags. And then suddenly in the morning you start sweating. You're like, oh no, the sun is on me. The sun is on me. You start ripping off all your layers. It was pretty fun.
I mean, we flew in from the festival the weekend before, and then we're just kind of cobbling together camping gear from each person that we were staying with each night of tour. And we're like, oh, do you happen to have like a pad or a sleeping bag or anything? And we had this awesome tent that had poles that I think came from a different tent. So it looked a little bit like something from a Pixar movie. But it's like, it's all part of the experience. It's lots of great memories, I think. And I think also the harder some of those situations are, and the night of not quite as good sleep kind of makes the stories a little bit more fun and interesting.
Yeah.
In fact.
Yeah, when you're in your 20s, that's great.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm not in my 20s, and I loved every minute, but it does get harder. And so Showcase Band this year, nominated for Emerging Artists next year at IBMA.
That's hopefully, we'll see. Maybe that would be amazing. Yeah, that's yeah, all of those things are longtime dreams, and trying to move that direction in any way we can. We're going to be playing Sultana Downrigging Festival in Maryland and that's in Halloween weekend. So that'll be a lot of fun, and that'll be a good chance to get out and do a lot more touring out east. Coming from the West Coast, we've done a good amount of touring out that direction, and we did last summer. We did a long tour out through California and back, and we're excited to do some more stuff out east. I think that's
Any plans to come to Brooklyn?
not right now, but it's definitely talking about it as we're planning our
A lot of bluegrass in New York.
oh yeah.
So thank you so much, both of you. This has been great to catch up with you. Congratulations again on your win. And I mean, it's a stepping stone, right? Let's go back to the Buddhist theme. It's the stepping stone in the river of life. And I'm sure that that was exciting. And there are many more exciting things awaiting you. I will see you at IBMA.
Great, looking forward to it.
At you this year. Oh,
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been lovely chatting.
I really enjoyed interviewing the Litch brothers. What a great pair. I just love the story of how they grew up on this small island and that they still found bluegrass and that it became such an important part of their lives. I'm also pretty impressed with their credentials. They've got a master's degree and they're coming out of Yale. I love that they're quoting books that they're reading, and it's just very heartwarming to know that we are bringing forth such wonderful young men in this tradition of bluegrass that we love so much. Also, it was great to re-listen to some of the stories and adventures we had at the Telluride Festival, which happens in Telluride, Colorado at the beginning of June. And it was great to share some of those stories and relive that as well. So thank you so much for listening. You can find me online at bluegrassjamsnearme.com. You can, of course, always reach out to me at liz@bluegrassjamsnearme.com. And you can always reach out to Mike, my co-host, Mike at bluegrassbrooklyn.com. Please remember to follow, like, and subscribe to our podcast. It really makes a difference for us when you share our interviews with your friends, family, and bluegrass buddies. Okay, thanks for listening, and see you around the jam circle.
We'd like to thank our sponsors. We learn and grow with Peghead Nation's online courses and world-class instructors. We're powered by Ear Trumpet Labs microphones. That's why we sound so good.
Every morning's playing tunes and wasting time. I know nothing lasts forever, but if we stay here together, I don't